There is a kind of wisdom that does not shout. It moves quietly, like water shaping stone over centuries. It asks for no reward, no attention, no immediate result. It teaches that true strength lies not in reaction, but in restraint. In a world that rewards speed, Confucius spoke of patience. In a time when people chased status and power, he sought balance and virtue. And though more than 2,000 years have passed since he walked the earth, his message feels written for the storms of our modern age. Confucius was born during chaos. It was the 6th century before our era. In the small state of Lu in what is now China, kingdoms clashed, rulers rose and fell, and loyalty was a fragile thing. The air of his time was thick with ambition and fear. Yet in the middle of that noise, a single child was born to a poor family, destined to teach the world the value of order, patience, and moral clarity. He was not born into privilege. His father died when he was still young. His mother raised him alone, teaching him humility and discipline. While others sought fortune through war or politics, Confucius turned to study. He watched how people lived, how they treated one another, how society broke apart when greed ruled over virtue. As he grew older, he saw that the world's chaos came not only from armies or rulers, but from the restlessness of the human heart. People wanted too much, too quickly. They forgot the slow rhythm of nature. They forgot the art of patience. Confucius believed that peace could begin only when a person learned to govern themselves. The first empire to rule is the self. He taught that before one could command a household or a state, one must first command the impulses within, the anger that flares, the pride that clouds judgment, the desires that rush ahead of wisdom. When he spoke of patience, he did not mean passive waiting. He meant the discipline of timing, the understanding that every action has its season, and that forcing what is not yet ready destroys more than it creates. He once said, "It does not matter how slowly you go, so long as you do not stop." These words are often quoted, but their depth is rarely felt. Confucius was not talking about lazy persistence. He was talking about trust, the trust that steady virtue, even in obscurity, will one day bear fruit. He spent years wandering from one state to another, seeking a ruler wise enough to put his teachings into practice. Many dismissed him. Some laughed at his ideals. Others feared his honesty. Still, he never grew bitter. He traveled with his small group of disciples, teaching wherever he was welcomed, studying the behavior of men, observing the rise and fall of those who mistook impatience for progress. To live with patience in a time of chaos was, for Confucius, a quiet form of rebellion. He believed that a person's worth was not proven by how quickly they achieved success, but by how gracefully they endured the waiting. He often spoke of a concept called Ren, the virtue of humanity. It meant kindness, compassion, and empathy in all relationships. But Ren was not born in a moment of inspiration. It grew through small acts, repeated daily, through the patience of listening, of forgiving, of choosing to respond with calm when provoked. Imagine living in a time when every word you spoke could be twisted into offense, when loyalty could change overnight, when the powerful acted without restraint. Confucius did not raise his voice against them. He taught by example. His patience was his protest. His calmness was his strength. In his teachings, he said, "The man who moves a mountain begins by carrying away small stones." He understood that the great changes in life do not happen in a single gesture. They unfold through perseverance, through the patient discipline of daily effort. Today, when messages race across the world in seconds, when opinions harden in minutes, and when people feel they must respond instantly to every challenge, his words invite us to breathe, to act with thought, not impulse, to understand that patience is not the absence of movement, but the presence of wisdom. There is a story told about him and one of his students. The young man grew frustrated, wanting to learn everything quickly. He asked Confucius how long it would take to master his teachings. The master replied, "If you study with urgency, perhaps 10 years. If you study with patience, perhaps 5. The student was puzzled. How could patience shorten the path? Confucius smiled and said, because a hurried mind learns nothing deeply. Only a patient heart can absorb what truth truly means. That lesson still holds its power. The faster we chase understanding, the more it slips through our fingers. But when we slow down, when we sit with our thoughts long enough to see what lies beneath them, wisdom begins to rise. Confucius often compared the wise person to water, gentle, patient, yet unyielding in its nature. It adapts to every shape but always follows its course. Water never forces its way, it finds it. It does not compete with stone, yet in time it shapes the mountain. Patience, to him, was that same force, the quiet confidence that nothing lasting is ever built in haste. He also spoke of Li, the art of proper conduct. It was more than etiquette. It was the discipline of living in harmony with others, of knowing when to speak and when to be silent, when to act and when to wait. In every gesture there was timing, in every silence, intention. Patience was not a weakness to him. It was the measure of character, the ability to restrain one's anger, to wait for clarity before judgment, to respect the slow unfolding of truth. When we think of patience today, we often imagine inaction. But in the teachings of Confucius, patience is action in its purest form. It is choosing to act rightly, not merely quickly. It is the decision to pause when emotion demands reaction. It is the art of creating space for wisdom to enter. There were times when his patience was tested deeply. During one of his journeys, he and his followers were trapped between warring states. Food ran out. The men grew weak and restless. Some began to doubt his guidance. Yet Confucius remained calm. He continued teaching, continued reflecting, continued trusting that hardship, too, was a lesson. When one of his students asked how he could remain so peaceful, he answered, "The noble man is at peace with his destiny. The small man is restless with his desire." That was his secret. To him, patience was not waiting for life to change, but living in alignment with what is right, even when it takes time to be seen. If you think about it, the entire philosophy of Confucius is an invitation to slow down, to measure success not by speed, but by integrity, to value the process, not only the result. He believed that the world could be transformed if each person simply perfected the small circle around them, their own thoughts, their words, their actions. From self to family, from family to community, and from community to the state, harmony would ripple outward. That ripple begins with patience, because no relationship can thrive without it. No learning can deepen without it. No justice can endure without it. Imagine for a moment the modern world through his eyes. Endless motion, constant distraction, 1,000 voices shouting at once. To Confucius, this would not be progress. It would be noise without music. He would remind us that the greatest wisdom often arrives in silence, that waiting is not a waste of time. It is part of understanding time itself. He once said, "To see what is right and not do it is the want of courage." But courage, to him, was not always action. Sometimes it was restraint, the bravery to hold your ground while others rush ahead. In modern chaos, patience becomes a radical act. It means listening when others shout. It means observing when others judge. It means trusting that depth will always outlast speed. When Confucius finally returned to his home state, he was an old man. Many of his dreams had not been fulfilled. The world had not changed as he had hoped. Yet, he remained serene. He wrote his thoughts, refined his teachings, and left behind words that would guide not just his students, but empires. He did not see failure in what was unfinished. He saw value in the effort itself. To live patiently, he believed, is to live with faith in the invisible work of time. He once told his disciples, that the greatest man is one who keeps learning even when there is no reward, who keeps improving even when no one is watching. That kind of patience is rare. It is the patience of the craftsman who polishes his art long after the audience is gone, the patience of a parent who nurtures without expectation, the patience of a gardener who plants trees whose shade he will never see. He warned that impatience blinds the heart. It makes us chase shadows, mistaking movement for meaning. But when we slow down, we begin to see what is real. We begin to hear the quiet voice beneath the noise. Think about your own life for a moment. How often does frustration rise when things do not go as planned? How often do you feel that time is slipping away? Confucius would ask you to look deeper. He would say that patience is not about waiting for things to happen, but about becoming the kind of person who is ready when they do. He taught that every challenge is a mirror. When we are forced to wait, the waiting itself reveals who we are. It shows us whether our peace depends on the world or on our own discipline. He might tell you that when anger comes, pause. When confusion clouds your path, pause. When temptation calls for haste, pause. Within that pause lives freedom. His students often asked him what kind of person could be called truly wise. Confucius answered, "The wise are those who know what they do not know, and who do not rush to speak what they have not understood." It was another lesson in patience, the ability to wait until knowledge becomes understanding. He believed that moral strength grows the same way a tree does, slowly, invisibly, quietly. It cannot be forced by passion or demand. It must be nurtured with steady effort and daily reflection. There is a beauty in that slowness, the beauty of a sunrise that does not rush to appear, the beauty of a river carving its path through centuries, the beauty of a life lived in rhythm with time rather than in defiance of it. As Confucius neared the end of his life, he looked back not with regret but with acceptance. His teachings had taken root in the hearts of a few, and that was enough. He once said that a single act of kindness can echo across generations. Perhaps he knew that his patience would one day ripple through ages he would never see. Patience, for him, was the soul's ability to stay steady while the world shifts. It was the mark of maturity, the test of virtue, the quiet rhythm behind every act of greatness. You can feel his voice echoing through the centuries, asking simple questions. Can you wait without resentment? Can you act without haste? Can you trust that what grows slowly often grows stronger? These are not questions of philosophy alone. They are questions for every day. When you face delay, when plans fall apart, when others provoke you to react, what if you remembered the calm of Confucius? What if you saw patience not as weakness, but as mastery of self? In the Analects, one of his students recorded that the master said, "The superior man is modest in speech, but exceeds in action." It is a reminder that the deepest strength is silent. The strongest people are often those who do not rush to prove it. If Confucius were alive today, perhaps he would not argue with the speed of our world. He would only ask us to bring virtue back into it, to move with purpose, not panic, to choose patience as a form of clarity. Because patience is not simply waiting. It is the art of peace in motion, the calm between action and outcome, the space where understanding matures. So the next time life feels chaotic, remember that ancient teacher walking through the dust of warring states, poor, unheard, yet unbroken, teaching a handful of students beneath the shade of a tree. He knew that all true change begins quietly, that the slow path, walked with sincerity, will always reach further than the hurried one. In the end, his life was proof of his philosophy. He planted the seeds of patience and virtue in a restless world. Centuries later, they still grow. And perhaps that is the final lesson of Confucius, that time always honors what is patient. If this reflection speaks to you, stay for more journeys like this, stories of wisdom that still breathe in our modern world.